We enter the last set of operating rounds for the game, the stock round for them, and this is a point where quite often this chart is the master of everything, right? And it's highly important. It still serves some value, but nowhere near as much as it does usually, because the types of shares you can pick up there's so many different types. It's one thing to look at, oh, I got a 20% share or a 10% share, available. That allows me to kind of look at the two middle level ones, and there's some differentiation, right? So these are all the big guys. These are all small guys except the OFE, and the OFE does not look significantly different to me. Maybe they all are. Maybe those others are all in shields and I just haven't caught it. Yep, yeah, they have a different little symbol on them, so that's kind of helpful. So this OFE at 18 is better than the NWB at 18, that's for sure. Of course, I still have to do some little bit of balancing, but it's not that big a deal. So I'm looking at a 20% share for the NWB and a 25 for the OFE. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. Likewise, these shields are better than the big boys. They're twice as good. Well, twice as good in terms of the running money. But then on top of that, you got to take into account that these guys shoot up 2 spaces for every output. So you've got again, everything's more complex in this game. And I've got the fear that this is an obfuscation design, that the game is not really anywhere near as interesting as it looks like it is, because it's got so much clunk heading on it. I got the same feeling about 1841 too, but at least that stuff represents something. Here, it's very hard to justify, these 3 company sizes and how they merge and what they work as. You can with a little bit of hand waving and everything, but it doesn't feel like a natural outgrowth. Now, to be honest, 18XX itself doesn't feel like a natural outgrowth of a simulation of the economic activity in terms of building up these railways. But it comes a little closer. It's really hard to figure out what's going on here. The state railways, okay, they're coming in from outside. But what is the difference between the minor railways and the major railways? Fundamentally, I've never understood the idea of making these distinctions between types of companies. I've always felt kind of the same way about the privates, but, that's something different. But yeah, I'm looking and... it's just making every decision harder. The same way all these different trains make every decision harder. And what we may be seeing is a sort of a chaos and a turmoil and a churn that wouldn't be there if it was easier to understand the game. Okay? That the main reason that things are exciting and look volatile the way they are is the fact that you can't hold all this crap in your head at once. And I'm not sure that's the route that Euros went down. I'm not sure I like seeing that in the 18XX side of things. 18XX is complicated enough on its own. But on the other hand, I do like the idea that this explores more of the state space. So, I don't know. The main thing is I can't see through it enough to tell you, is there something here or is there not? My gut feeling is, yeah, all that chaos does actually generate quite a bit of variability that, gives opportunities to players that are not trivial to see. Example, let's say these numbers are right. They're not. Well, then why are we saying that? Okay, the BTE here is sitting at 32, the KK at 49. The BTE would normally be worth less, but it's twice the share size. So it goes up to 64. But we have to take into account here, 64 plus 10 is 74 total. KK 49 plus 24 puts it to about 73. Okay, about the same, you know. Unfortunately, the KK does not have that kind of trade on it. In fact, none of the big boys are going to be getting huge runs, so we're looking more in the 25 range, probably. Hard to tell, though. We'd probably have to calculate it out. So, like, the KK here is running what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that's not very good. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, no. Yeah, that doesn't look too hot at all. 80, 90, 110, 150, 200, 300. So it's looking at 30. Okay, that's not that bad. But this is the biggest of the trains, is a 6 there. The PR is probably not doing much better, if at all. Right now I've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which I think is what I've scored there at the 24. I'd like to be cutting through here, which, if I make this link, would be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that's too many. Ruh-roh. I mean, obviously I could break out again, but I don't have any money, so I can't. Yeah, so I don't know if that's going to do much better unless I can find some track lace for the BN. So I think my gut is telling me these things are better, but I'm going to have to make this kind of analysis every share, and of course I'm not going to do it for every player. So we see a little bit more groupthink than maybe, you know, mistakes get propagated and everything, a little more than they would in a opposed game. On the other hand, I've seen people in opposed games quite often, oh, what did that person buy? Yeah, that looks reasonable. They did the analysis, sort of the Burger King analysis. McDonald's did this huge multi-million-dollar study to figure out which corners, you know, where the best places for their restaurants were throughout the country. And they got it down to the street corner and whatever, and Burger King made the decision of, this could be apocryphal. This could be apocryphal. Yeah, to, hey, let's just build one everywhere where there's a McDonald's. Now, clearly, those are no longer the optimal locations, because the existence of the McDonald's has actually influenced where the optimal locations are. But it's a matter of, I'll match the competition as long as my burgers are better, you know, which is, I believe, their strategy, honestly. This pretty much showed that all the smaller companies were worth more than the big ones on a per share basis. OFE hasn't really been an option, except people could sell it. But then came the question of, well, I can make a quick analysis on the small companies, but the big companies all went through such a shakeup, I have to analyze their trades. It turns out that the PR and the KK are the two best. This guy actually bought a second share of PR. And that leads me to another thing. Once you get to those big state railways, they're kind of like the 1835 railways. You don't have a way to dump them. Like, this may be what the concern is. I don't think it is. But I can't just take this and put it over here. I mean, I can, except there's no space for it. But this train doesn't do any good for that company, and I'm not allowed to convert it, you know, with payment or whatever. So I get no gain out of raping this company, and all I get is the loss, the harm of getting rid of the shares. So unless it's a pretty questionable company that I don't think I want to own, period, there's no reason for me to dump one of these big guys. And they're all functioning, they all make money, and they all give that extra share. And there aren't enough of the little shares out there available to make up for. So you wouldn't be like, well, I could dump my Prussians, and sure, I'm losing my 20% certificate, but, you know, I'm picking up a bunch of 20%ers. It might be better. Squirrel. I get those big fluffy-tailed guys. All right. Yeah. Up here is able to prove that actually that NWB sitting out there is not worth buying. And in fact, he probably wants to drop his share. The problem with dropping his share is that drops the value of 2 other shares, but and the reason is KK definitely makes more money. Prussian makes even more, but that's not an option. And the Prussian and the KK perhaps actually have room for a little bit of improvement to their values. But when you throw in the stock value, the moving 2 spaces, and what are going to be fairly high valuations, it makes up for the doubling of a fairly low valuation. This, I think, was still worth it. That's 42. Well, this is so low. 47. I think a little, I don't know. They're in the same realm, so it's not like you're going to kill yourself by buying the wrong stock unless something weird happens. I screwed up, though, is I've got people like this holding 50% of the Prussian who didn't realize they can buy their 6th share of it. Is it terrible? Again, you're not going to screw up terribly by making a choice between the KK and the Prussian, but it is an edge, and it's an edge that he just gave away. And we're kind of seeing, I don't know. And now I might end up having to hold 2 shares of KK, which isn't a bad thing, but there's some theoretical potential that I could get schwacked in that way. Things set up, the slickness of the cards, etc. These had actually kind of combined into one. I hope I haven't picked up 2 at once and put them there. I hope he actually bought a 2nd share that he intended to. I can't tell you the answer. I really kind of worried that he got a share for free by them sticking together. There's a certain static to these. They're very, very smooth and silky cards, but they don't part as easily as normal paper. Now they're going to last for, you know, they've got a much better lasting capability. So I'm not going to complain about the components for that, but I don't know if I bought 1 share and grabbed 2 or if I paid for a 2nd share. And I just can't tell you the answer to that. I was trying to make a decision on this thing. This guy made the choice to hold, which of course makes selling one kind of more useful, but they're actually a pretty good deal. At 18, they're in the 180 range. They're worth 45 on their own, plus 10 puts it to 55. That's better than I'm getting off single shares of the big guys, which is in the 40s really, when you count everything in. The problem, even if I was sure that I slipped him an extra share, I would have to figure out a whole rewind to get back there, because I mean, clearly this guy would have bought it. Who else though? Would he have bought a 3rd one instead of a 2nd KK? Probably. You know, there's a lot of people who have had an input in there. On the other hand, I'm hoping I didn't just make this guy win the game by handing him, you know, an extra $158 and an opportunity that came from nowhere. Pretty much to the, hey, everybody passed except this guy. He bought a BY. And we can see that there's 1 certificate of KK open. And the question is, he can't buy it. He's got to his 60% actually. Is there anybody interested in boosting KKs? And this guy might be. He's got that KFN that isn't terribly interesting to him. Same player. The KFNs are worth 42.47. And the KKs, I don't remember what I came to on them. 100, 150, 190, 210, 220, 300. I don't remember what the other one was now. 300, and so that comes to 30. So that comes to 54. That sounds pretty good. Yeah, I think I'm going to dump, I don't remember what we were at here. Dump a BN. 42, 47, yeah. I think the 54 beats that out. So remember, the BN's not, way up there in terms of good purchases. So I'm going to dump a share of that, but that might cause him to dump a share because now he's not sold out and there might be something valuable he can do. Of course, he's holding 2 shares and that hurts it more. I dumped his share of KFN. This guy can't. The problem is, it would be great if he could, but he doesn't have the extra cash on hand to buy up a Bavarian. There's the last Bavarian out there, and that would be worth boosting, even though it helps the guy who just shit on his stock again. And I don't think there's anybody willing to shuffle stuff for a Bavarian. He's already at his 60%. He bought that. Yeah, I don't see anything. I still got to question whether this is worth it, but it seems to be worth significantly more than the KFN is, so I don't know. Trying to figure out the value on these shares is just, I mean, it's fine if you're doing it for yourself, but when you're doing it across all the portfolios, you have to do the valuation and pretty much the comparative valuations of most of the shares out there. And that's hard for me to keep it in mind. Usually when you're playing just one person, you can be like, well, gosh, I need to hold these to hold control of my company, and those are just shitty. I can tell that, so I can get rid of them. But there's a lot of close calls in this one. Yeah. So I think I just set the valuation. These things going up and the turn order. More stock rounds, so I'm not going to bother looking at the piles of cash to try to figure out who sits where. I'll just get rid of those number cards to make life easier. Gas has died down. Let's see what we're looking at here. Oh, and I might actually be gaming with someone tomorrow. 2-player stuff, but the Prussian. Well, I got a little confused thinking, oh, Prussian and BN must be connected. They're not. That guy is the guy who could light track for the Prussian. And so I connected this up with the hope that the BN would hook that up. It's possible somebody might, get to here, but probably curving into this or get up here or something. It's really unlikely they're going to hook up to this, which is what I kind of need. But whatever. Fuck up, right? Saxon had to go back in value. Built itself, bought its 8 train, selling the private it had. And it's got a pretty good run set up already. Running down here. Well, so it's got this for sure. 1, 2, 3, 4. But I could probably hook something up like this. Not without hooking this up. I'm wondering what I thought I had. I have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is close, and I can throw a doink in or whatever. Oh, I know what's good. No, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm allowed to cross, which means I don't want to head down this way, but I could head this way, or I could head up this way. Either one is possible. So I got a lot of options with this Saxon. I don't remember what I laid as track. I think it was this curve. No, that was already in place. I don't know what I laid. It seemed like a good idea, but I'm not so certain now. And then we did the BY. And the BY's got a fair set here running down into here, but that only makes 26 a share. Saxon, I could just throw out. I have no idea what it's going to come to. And I started building to go up here so I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The BY has a company, so I could actually blast through there, which might end up being good for all kinds of people, but who knows. UG expended its private to upgrade this. There is another purple, or there is a purple Y. There's one regular brown Y and then a purple Y. It's no better. It's just you can expend a private in order to get that capability. This is an important location. I'm just wondering, did I jump from yellow all the way to purple? I don't think so. I think this thing was there. I'm not sure. But this becomes a whole lot more valuable, and I want it as the centerpiece. It's my exit from here. I got to make sure it doesn't get double dotted. I put my dot there. I think it can get me there eventually. We're not sure. There are no cities with 3 tokens open that I'm aware of. Gotta look around because there's weird stuff in this game, but other than Prague, I think that's the only 3 or 4 token city that there is. And that's making 25, which, you know, is in the same realm as the BY, but whatever. I might be able to boost that a little bit. And now I'm on the Saxon, not the Saxon, sorry. I am on the KK up there. Rakuski Statny Drache. And that has a 6E. Now, just looking naively, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I've got to run. I can't, this piece doesn't exist. It's over here, and there's only one of them, which sucks. If I had a company, I could maybe do something like upgrade this to get into here or something like that. But basically, there is no way to do what I want to do running there. Now, there is another option. There's this, but I don't have $10. I'm just looking for some way to get some more money into this. It is looking to me like that is the best I can do, is just this little crappy run at this point, unless somebody builds me something. See what I did. The KK ran at 30. Not much I think I can do about that. Anyway, that got me to the BN, which I run into a problem with. I've got a decent run. It'll work for the rest of the game, whatever. I haven't figured it out yet, but it's what I want. I got cash, I can lay track, I've got dots, I could do all kind of neat shit, right? And maybe want to. But my main run is the one I've been running, which is this thing. Actually, skip this up through, because I can only hit 2, 3, 4. And that's going to be hard to improve on, but there is one way I could. Instead of coming down to here, I could curve up and get into here and up into there. And that would be a big bonus. So I'm looking for the piece that does that, which is pretty common. It doesn't exist in this game. I was pretty sure I hadn't played it on the board. It's not an often played piece. Well, in 1830 it shows up a lot, but to to me, it's sort of part of the standard tile manifest, and the fact that it's missing from this one was a real kind of shocker. It's not like I've been planning all game to play that piece. It's just, I'm a little surprised there ain't one of them. On looking at this, this is what has the information I need, and you know, the player's aid obviously is meant to be a supplement to the main game cards, but for the train, understanding which trains are coming when and what's going on, that sheet really tells you what I need. And I don't know, I just didn't have it out regularly. I had the other sheets out because, oh, these are the homemade player aids, they're definitely going to be more valuable. Well, they don't assume you don't use the stuff that comes with the game. Nowhere, with other people laying track all over the place, the OFE has actually pushed its way into being kind of more interesting than it was. I'm actually running, let me see, here, up, wait, let me catch this right. Here, around, and up. And that may mean that this is an important dot and worth exchanging my $100 worth of property for it. Or is there another route? Yeah, no, this is the important dot right now. It may not be forever because I may end up going up here instead. But I'm hitting all kinds of cool stuff. And let me see. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4. That would still be going through there. So I want to exchange this and get my last dot in here. And that, of course, may cause some problems for someone else. I don't know who. Maybe the UGG. It does mean that I'm throwing away a good one. But I think I'm okay with that. I don't see any green that I absolutely want to upgrade. This would have been cool to upgrade. Would that get me an extra $10? It will immediately, but not in the long term necessarily. And I think the dot is more important at this point. I'm really afraid of other people being able to pull a dot out of their ass, like I just did. The next company actually has a dot it has ready to pull out of its ass. It's got $100 to build it. Here's the problem. I'm also running the NWB. We're both running through here. I could drop a dot there. There's no question about that. Before I went through this alignment, hey, who else is likely to drop that dot? And at this point, KFN doesn't have the cash. BN does. BN already has a dot there. I don't see anybody else who can pull one out. UG would have to absorb something. He doesn't have a company to absorb, so it's like, yeah, I just don't think it's possible. And I think, you know, when you're running two companies that are using the same space, if you can keep that dot open, it's to your best interest. Which means this is like an offensive dot. And as such, putting it here would be really devastating maybe to the KK. I mean, it would take away that nice city. But I would need the NWB dot there or someone else to dot in there. And I don't see anybody who's willing and able to do that. Which then means, okay, where can I find one? Well, I got a potential hit right here. I'm just not convinced anyone else is going up there except the Saxon. And so I'm going to just hold my dot in reserve and see if an opportunity shows up where I really want to use it. Because dotting without a clear value does not seem wise. Second thoughts about putting the dot there, because the NWB is the next company up and I'm looking at its train. Okay, it's running, or has been running, 1, 2, 3, actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can add a 50 here and not go to there. Let's see what this would mean. I would be running 1, 2, 3, doink, doink, 4, doink. That's 3 of my 5 doinks. 5. Now, I would lose $30 off my run for that. But I would absolutely guarantee the BTE's run and would cut off some other people's stuff. I'm going to leave it alone as it is because I did all that analysis. It is $30 a run I'm losing. Well, I'll call it 20 because I'm hitting this dot instead. But I don't really have an easy way forward that would allow me to improve things, like if I could get it down to 10 a run or something. And who is going through there? I don't know. Maybe next round. That people really seriously missed out. That 5+5 train is awesome. It's running a 38 run, which, because the shares are double size, essentially each of these $100 certificates is getting you $76. Wow. Some people bought BTEs. They looked better. They were a little higher on the chart. They were a little higher there. I figured, well, it'll make a little bit more, whatever. Nah, this is significantly more. It's another stop, right? And also, actually, I would have lost an extra $10 because I am hitting this. I'm running 1, 2, 3, doink, doink, 4, doink, 5, doink, doink. Because I can hit 5 doinkers, not just 4. Yay! Still can't upgrade any of them to get any bonus, but whatever. But yeah, that's an exciting run that I was not expecting to be that much better, just because I wasn't thinking. And there are a couple of people who have shares of BTEs who probably should have the NWBs. And we get all the runs. This is what the price setup is. And right away we say, boom, boom, boom. These are the good guys. Those are the ones people wanted. The NWB, the best of the lot, got ignored. The bigger ones, well, they might make a little bit more stock value up there. That might make some distance up where the PR and KK are probably about the same level as these guys. These guys are really getting iffy, though, I would say. And then down here we can see the OFE and KFN, are putting in pretty reasonable performances. Basically, the cities are getting upgraded so much. The knots are getting loosely gathered in ways that allow a lot of different track permutations to be made, which, of course, is something of a headache, but it doesn't feel too bad. And some decent runs are coming out of it, even though nobody's got 2 trains, which is, of course, always going to be the goal in this kind of situation. Get yourself to 2 permanent trains. Nobody's there. I'm sure it's possible to do, but it did not fall easily. A little weird about the operating order, and I don't know that it's bad. If you want to buy out a smaller company, and let's say the Prussian is considering the OFE, just largely for the purpose of the dots, to tell you the truth, and I don't think it's not going to happen, not at this point in the game, but I was just kind of contemplating in my head was, wow, there's a bunch of dots here that would allow me to make a better run, but not make as much money because the OFE's able to crank with that little 4 train. So, but it won't be able to get here. It is just a 4 train. I hope I haven't been running a 3+3. Pretty sure I haven't been. Okay. So it is actually uninterested in this connection here, but that's fine. The Prussian is kind of having trouble, and some of these dots cutting it off are preventing it from making a run that I think worked better for it down here, and it's going to lose some value. I don't have the cash to blast through any of this shit, which would help me. But I was just thinking about that possibility of grabbing that corporation for whatever value it might have, and I realized, okay, well, I'd lose a run because the OFE runs below me. Now, there are some times in the game when those smaller companies may have gotten ahead of what you're starting your larger companies at, probably early on in the larger company lifespan, right? And in those cases, you'd get to run both companies, basically. But here, whatever train this has, whatever tokens it has, they are just going to be neutralized for this turn. I would lose them entirely for one turn. They become part of the corporation. And then there's another factor that fits in with that, which is sometimes you don't want a company to run because you'd have to buy a train with it. You can't, it's juggling trains doesn't protect you in this game. You have to have a train you can run, which means I can't just buy an XS 3E or whatever, something that I can't run on the smaller company, but could keep it alive briefly so that I could make it through. So there's some weirdness there. The rules are unambiguous. It's just there's a number of effects that you have to kind of look at, and I don't find them necessarily. There's so much abstraction in an 18xx game already that I don't find that kind of mechanism to be particularly disturbing. What I find disturbing is this kind of, or potentially so, is the layers of complexity creating an obfuscation. Now, it doesn't bother me as much in XX. I like XX. I'm used to the base ground. Maybe if I was really used to kind of the base concepts that were in, say, Polis, which I just played, I wouldn't mind that extra layer of complexity as much. But it does seem gratuitous here again. It seems like it's just trying to either create, some novel experience or to make the game harder for people to kind of really get a grasp of that they can control it very completely. Now, I can control a game of 1830, but only with players who are kind of unsure of what they're doing. That's one possibility. I can do a lot of weird shit then. Or the most likely, when we're talking about really low player counts, like 4 and less, it's really, really there's some dominating strategies, and combine the two, and you can really do some sick stuff in it. It's one of the reasons I like playing with maximum player count in most XX games, because I feel like that kind of makes it harder for someone to just sort of control too many levers in the game that they can pretty much assure themselves a victory. I mean, if you get your hands on enough of the levers, your opponent can't survive. It doesn't matter what kind of great railroad they built or whatever. You've got too many of the railways. You control too much. That may not be the case in, say, some of the older Tresham games where you really can't rush the trains in the same way and stuff. Feels like it would be the case in this one. I really wonder about there's a 3-player map and a map for. There's a 2-player game that has a dummy player as a 3rd player. It feels to me like you might have enough that you could really grab the reins. That doesn't mean that it's going to always go that way. If you have a couple capable players, it won't. But if you have a significant difference in capability. But I don't feel like XX needs these extra layers of complexity. I do find some of it intriguing, just to put the accent in the wrong place. But but yeah, I really am afraid this one kind of falls to that obfuscatory bent. And for nothing, I ended up running the same amount. I wasn't using back here. I think I saw something that could potentially have ended up interesting. Certainly, if this hooked up, it would have been interesting. But I don't get there now, and I don't know that I want to particularly. Like, it would take a lot of work to cut here, and I'm not hitting all these cities anymore, so I'm kind of out of that development. Instead, I boinked this up. I fired off their little private to get them up here, and that's kind of sweet. Now they can run this, which is somewhat better. Not a whole lot, but somewhat. And I actually have some money if I need to blast through. You know, I have enough cash. I could do this, which may be even better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So this is a 70 city, but I don't need to do the. I could do this in one upgrade and get a significant increase. We're talking about a $10 increase after two money paid track lays that other people are interested in me doing. So this is appealing. I wish I had a dot to drop here. I'd like it, but I don't. And we might see someone like the BN slip in there just to cut my life into hell. 2G had set up that was looking kind of sweet, has gotten a lot less sweet. But at least I have a dot out. I'm only running at 22 now, but building my way towards here. How much is that going to help me? Not all that much, okay? Even if I hook this straight up, it basically gets me a $40 increase, gets me about where I was before, a little ahead, 26. But it's possible if this goes different ways or something, interesting stuff could end up going into play. I got no more dots. Glad I put this one down because who knows, the BN could have easily gone in there and cut that apart. K also is able to zoom through that track. Awesome shit coming through here. That's really becoming a really sweet loop. That gets them up to a 37 run. And see the power of cooperation and of nobody having dots capable. BN's got to be really considering if it can get, yeah, it can get a dot there. They want to cut that shit. They can't do this. They're there. They can cut that shit though, and they're sick of it. Unfortunately, is not able to take advantage, even though it has this dot here, of the construction as well as it would like. Right now, what it's running is in general, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I can grab a couple of 30s along the way with no problem. I'd like to go through here. If I had this piece of track, I could. I only got $15. Who's my buddy? My buddy's the UGG, and the UGG can't get up there and help. And I highly doubt anybody else is going to build that track. There might be a path through here with only $10. Let's see about that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That doesn't look too bad. These 30 buckers aren't any worse than the shittiest things I'm going through. So I think I can do that. Actually a pretty nice 48 run, which I can actually improve because I'm going through that space, and pretty sweet. That's not going to be able to help me no matter what. That's already used. It's just potentially cash. So yeah, that's pretty nice actually. Now I've built some of the track that the Prussian wanted me to build. I don't know if it does me any good. I don't have an upgrade, so I can't get it, out of there in a different way. But I am getting into there, and that may mean something. Swapped. I wish I had done this earlier because I've been getting confused with, hey, is the Prussian and BN the same owner? I swapped the Prussian and the BY. I think that helps me understand situations a little better, but who knows? I counted the BN route, but I didn't think about, hey, can I upgrade anything? I don't think I can. It's running a pretty mature route down here. Maybe through that. No, not through that. The 4+4 and actually over to here. So yeah, there's nothing I can upgrade that helps. Maybe I can do something for the BY, and I'll take a look about that. But what I could do was I had a private company, and I'm ending the fun for everyone. Instead of ending the fun, I'm ending the fun for the BY as well. But that's okay. I built me some track to there, and I have, this has been used, but I have enough money to cut across, and that all looks good to me. Actually, what I may want to do, the BN can get here. I'm gonna build this because I'm in more trouble. Somebody could fuck that up for me. Somebody could fuck that up badly. Actually, this piece of track exists too. Maybe I'll do an upgrade instead, because I'm in here and get my $10 back. But yeah, so I'm creating, trying to create a side route for the BY to blast through and get up there anyway, and that may open things up for other people as well. But not everybody has money. The Prussian doesn't have money. These are the guys who go before the BY, and the KK doesn't have money. So sure, I'm probably opening something up. I don't know, the UG isn't going to get up there probably. We'll see. The Saxon doesn't need it. They have the dot. So I'm actually kind of doing things perfectly here, I think. The track that wants to be here, which is this one, looks great and everything, but it doesn't work for what the BY needs. The BY needs to come up here, come down, and have this second path coming down. And if I bridge this, that doesn't happen. So yeah, I do need this doinker here. A while back, I thought I cheated for the OFE and didn't give them a run. Well, now I think I cheated for them and gave them too good a run last time. They were up at 23. They're running a 4 train. I don't see it. Maybe I was hitting through here. 11. 11 and 9 would be 20. That doesn't do it. Yeah, I just don't see where it was coming from. But now I count up and I get to an 18, 5, 9, 13, 18 here. I don't see anything better. I don't see anything better likely to happen. So yeah, I may have cheated both ways, leaving it alone. Probably was hurt more by definitely was hurt more by missing a run, if that's what happened. And we're only making 18, which is a lot less impressive. They were one of the better stocks out there. Now, not so much maybe. The Saxon just blew the doors off everything. Bottom end doesn't do much excitement. The NWBBT running the same as they were, no dots. You know, it would be kind of cool if I could close the door after I went, but the BTE goes before the NWB, so I can't even drop that dot. The KFN managed to get the little hookup here. It may help someone else more than it helps them. They only got up to a 26 from it. They might be better off if they can. What they'd really like to do, and I couldn't do it and hook this up and get a few extra bucks this turn. But what they'd really like to do is be running something that hits up here and lets them down there. And that's going to be hard, but maybe if somebody else hooks it up for us, like this piece, which isn't going to happen. So, I mean, that's the whole thing. I have to hook this piece up, and I have to increase this city for it to work. And even then, I'm still talking about maybe eking out another buck or two a share. So now we're on the final operating round. It looks like it's coming into sight, and the end is coming into sight. Like I said, I think I'm going to be gaming tomorrow. So, kind of want to get this done and packed away. Free up at least some tables. Even if I'm not playing in here, I'll be able to put them somewhere that they'll be reasonable. Okay, well, we ran through the last round all at once. Boom, boom, boom. Not a lot of excitement. Very little additional playing. And the runs nobody really got slashed, and nobody got helped much. I may have found an extra buck here and there for a couple of companies, just, not one that I was missing, but was able to upgrade. But there's nothing significantly different in the runs. And so we have our values on the line. I'm going to flip all these face up again, just because it's easier for me to deal with them when I can see them in that form. And it's time to count the money. We see some things though right away. This is just, I could have been predicting this earlier. There's a whole pile, $2,000 sitting here. By the way, enough money has disappeared from the bank, and I think it only happened in this round, that, and this happens in 82, where I feel like this probably would have been where most games end anyway. It's not like, oh my God, the game is going to go, I've got so much ability to control the game that I could push it into an extra set of 3 operating rounds. However, some games do allow for that, and this one might have if it weren't for the exporting, if there were less trains overall, but the exporting wasn't there. It might be possible that, somebody has a pile of extra money. Remember, the UG had $500 on it. I did a train swap thing. Sometimes it makes more sense to do a swallow and buy an extra train and then have 2 trains running on one company. And especially with these guys, where they can, essentially with parallel tracks like we've got going in a number of places, they could really run a couple of runs that are pretty fucking awesome. So I wouldn't neglect that strategy, but something like that could end up pushing out not a whole wave of train flows, but it could push enough money that, a bank that's not close to breaking, or that's close, that's going to break, ends up just close to breaking, because it's $1,000. This is well under what I'm used to games breaking. I'm used to many more 500. I'm used to as many 500s pretty much as are out on the table being withdrawn from the game. I don't know what the exact amount of the bank is that's out there, but this just feels like it would have ended about where it did. Anyway, I got 2,000 there. Here we're close. We're in about that same realm. And then all the others are kind of lower. He's got 1,500, 1,800. He's kind of close. This guy, it looks like he's about equal to him, but remember, he's got a $318 penalty against him. That's one thing with this kind of penalty. So it really sucks when you have to drop a stock that you really wanted to hold or whatever, because you need to make up that cash. But in this game, you need to make up that cash eventually anyway, and your penalty is you have to pay twice for however much it was. So it is still a fairly devastating blow to be hit with a massive out-of-pocket train expense. I'm not sure which is worse. Losing a whole bunch of shares that are going to produce money is definitely painful. But are they going to produce their value in money? Depends on the period of the game, So this may actually be a worse penalty, but it certainly doesn't feel as bad. You just have this little slip of paper saying you're screwed. instead of like sitting there on 3 stocks saying, wow, I'm fucked. One thing that it does, though, is it means that sometimes, and this is, I think, part of the intention, sometimes it means you're going to lose control of companies. Now, one of the neat things about that is that you can engineer the loss of a company during a time when somebody thinks they're safe because they have priority on you. In this game, because it's got moving priority instead of by seating order, I have to say I wouldn't be holding 2 shares of anything I didn't feel pretty damn secure in holding, no matter what. But players could keep track of where the priority is going to move. And some people, I'm sure, are capable of doing that better than I would be able to. Solo, I can't do it. But even opposed, I think I'd have trouble. So, what does that put me to? I don't know. It's time to start counting and spreadsheeting out the values for everything. Stock value. Stock value is another important side of it. So we can look. The Prussian is in the lead. Yeah, it's the guy with the most money has the highest valued stock. That's neat. The big boys, they're going to jump to the lead in this game no matter what. And that's a big penalty on this fella because he had none of them. On the other hand, it might be something that gives an edge here. Of course, one of his isn't worth all that much. It's the lowest valued of them. It had an extra crash and whatnot. Swallows, it did not gain as much space as it should have. Even though it started earlier than the BY and UGG. So, I mean, it was a more troubled company. And then when we look at the little guys, well, the BN's doing pretty well, stock-wise, and he's in the cash. That's going to do better than his holdings here. But on the other hand, then there's also the, hey, what else are you holding? So this guy's holding a lot of big boy stocks. That's got to be important. Same as him. So, yeah, I mean, the fellow who has none of the big ones still holds 50% of real stocks. So, okay. All right, I'll stop babbling and do the calculations. It's going to be hard to come back with a wrap on this just because, man, there was just so much fucking chaos. And I think the game is designed to create that kind of chaos where it's going to be hard to see the flow in sort of the stately manner that 1835 would produce. Computed the final results. So we got the cash down here, and we kind of knew what that was. Here are the different stock types, and each person owned 2 companies at the end of the game, actually, but of different types. So you can see the medium companies, hey, you know, a couple $100 because I can only hold 3 shares of those, right? Same with the small ones. But when you get to the larger companies where you can hold 50, 60%, you see people are collecting large quantities of money in that particular stock holding. So player 2, actually, both of his are large companies. One of them didn't prove as much. And then everything to the right of the underlined ones is sort of their smaller holdings. And you can see player 1 with all of his, he has the most entries because it was easier to calculate out just by multiplying and whatever. But yeah, he has 5 big boy shares over there, and that's a 639 and a 550, and nobody else really has anything like that. When you sum up all their remaining shares, they end up being larger than their secondary company, but not, you know, in the range of like 1,300. This guy, basically, his secondary shares were the equivalent of one of the large companies. So, you know, in terms of what's invested and what kind of money you're making off of the things, it's probably kind of similar. And then, and I added the negative 318 in on player 3. You can see the lowest of the cash holdings, the lowest of the stock holdings, and of course coming in last as well. And not too much of a shock here. Player 5 ended up winning. And there were a couple of things where there was some weird shit going on that he probably could have made some more money. So for example, I think I missed making a run with this. But then I made up for it by cheating in another place in favor of that company. So I don't know. There are certainly mistakes in my play. So don't take anything that I say is particularly that insightful. But this guy was not far behind, actually. You're looking at a difference of $120. That's nothing in an XX game. It really is nothing. But then below that, it gets a little harder. You're looking at a $500 difference to the second and third place. And I'm sorry, to the fourth and fifth place, or third and fourth place. The fifth place, significantly behind, but not as hosed as sometimes you see. I think this game, it's harder to get completely demolished, although I'm sure I could manage it. Oh, so what can we say about what was done? Well, this guy followed a kind of a nice progression, Build a small company, build a medium company, build a big company. I think he did it in the other order. I think he did the small, big, medium. But he did something weird. He used that medium company and just crashed it into his big company, gave himself a little bit of a respite. He'd have been in a lot of trouble if he hadn't done that. What about this guy? Small company, medium company, put the small company into the medium company, big company, had two running at the end, his medium, and not bad, and not that great for a big one. He came in very late with his big company. What can we say didn't work too well? Well, fucking up didn't work too well. that we know. Fucking up really didn't work well. Now, how much could he have prevented that? I don't know. I mean, he had to kind of be predicting the trains, how the train would fall across the board. And I generally don't get into that position when I'm playing opposed. I generally end up in the top few, but not falling and crashing hard. But notably, I play a very defensive game, and if everybody's playing a defensive game, somebody may end up still falling. So usually I can push that off onto someone else with my play. This was not a good plan, but he ended up not that far behind. Why was it not a good plan? Well, because I had one of these big suckers that I couldn't rid myself of because I didn't manage to get a big company. Why didn't I get a big company? Probably because a couple of them came out a little early, and I didn't work too hard to make sure that I would get one, like maybe not buying a share so that I have enough cash. So that I have enough cash to ensure that I get first purchase. I think not buying that big company was a big deal. I really do, because he was doing pretty damn well. And at the end, his two companies were doing well. He did have to take a hit, though. He did take a cash hit as well, which maybe negates that situation. One thing about those big companies is they pay a lot for their trains. If you compare the 5+5 train's $500, a 5E is $700. Now, I don't know which is better, right? A 5E can skip as many dots as it likes. The 5+5 gets 5 dots scored. Now, those dots can go up to $30 each. But at the very least, you're probably looking at $50 more. You probably can go to the same place as the 5E can. I think the medium companies are the big breadwinners in terms of pulling the cash in at the end of the game. They made pretty good runs. And we can just look at this. The BN, BTE, and NWB all were in the same layer. The only thing that beat them out was this 8 train. Now, Yeah, that's going to make huge runs, no question. And in fact, it looks a little disappointing. If you're looking at a 5 train, who had a 5? The BY had a 5 here at 34. An 8 would be 49, more than that. Yeah, I'm not too unhappy about that. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, if you manage to get the biggest train in the game, yes, you will make more money than a medium-sized company running a fairly large plus train, like a 4 plus 4, 5 plus 5. And I mean, it has to be a 4 plus 4, 5 plus 5. So I would actually aim for trying to keep these things alive and not sinking them into the corporation. Let's see what that meant. Well, the guy who won the game sunk one into a corporation, but he never really built it up. He just put it in there for cash. And I always like, starting a company and being able to use it just for cash. It didn't make a lot of extra cash, but it actually gave him cash too. So not only did he not have to buy as many trains between his companies and got some extra money out of it for his big corporation, but he also generated a fair amount of pocket money out of nowhere. And that's something you can do in this game, is if you've got a corporation that has a fair amount of cash on it, you can turn that cash into pocket money very, very easily by just throwing, one of your smaller companies into it. This was a peculiar situation in which the PR actually gained by paying near maximal value. It actually gained money as well and was only able to buy the train that it wanted to buy because of that machination. So that was a peculiar situation that allowed this player to easily make up, well over that $120 difference here. Right? Now, did this guy do anything cute and clever? Well, he didn't get hurt. He didn't get himself in any trouble. Every other player, I think, got themselves in some kind of trouble. He bailed himself out with this company. There may have been some hit to that. I'm not sure. A small company surviving to the end, that's a little iffy. You can see that doesn't make all that much cash. But stock value wise, it's doing as well as the others here. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm just basically babbling about things. Oh, one thing I definitely wanted to point out. These didn't all sell. And I mean, I was aware of them. I wasn't like, oh, I don't know what to do with them. Essentially, the only reason someone would buy one is if they hit a stock round knowing that they needed the special ability from one and had the company to convert that. I don't feel like I was ever in that position, but some of that may be because I would stop at the end of an operating round and walk away from the table. But never did I feel like, oh, geez, I really need one of those. Because one of the problems is in that position, once you're from here on, in that position, buying one of those takes up one of your stock slots. So it damn well better be one hell of a bonus that you're getting off of it, right? It's no big deal to do that over here. You can buy it, you can get it into the company, and maybe make some money. Probably not. This is worth 80, 75 was the cheapest big one. You had to be in this range to break even. But at 50, you're breaking even over here and whatever. But yeah, I mean, it gives you a special ability that can be very useful. But the little special ability, the one you can make money off of, might be important if you needed a doink or something. We had a couple of them not gotten rid of. This didn't get picked up. That was a mistake. I should have bought that with a corporation. I'm sure that I could have made more money than whatever I was making off this. And the corporation probably could have used the money, certainly could have used the special ability. I know the PR would have loved it. So yes, and it could buy that. That's one of the problems with the little companies is you don't have that flexibility to grab any private and do kind of the late game private stuff. But yeah, this guy got himself hosed by not having any place to put his private. This one didn't get sold. That's no big deal. You know, it's producing constant cash, which might be at least as much value, you know. I mean, 6 turns, it makes its money up, right? In terms of its total value at the end of the game. Well, in 6 turns, we're talking it was only worth 75, so then it's 4 turns, right? I see no real reason to sell those unless you need the cash immediately, and then obviously they're a bonus to turn in. But yeah, I thought the privates were an interesting thing in the game. I don't like the fact that they kind of eat up a chunk of table. I could have put it somewhere else. You know, further, it was already hidden from mind, but to some extent. But yeah. All right. I'll come back with a review, hopefully before I have to game tomorrow. But, you know, it's not that big a deal either way because the big thing is that I get the table cleaned off. And I always do that before I do a review.